Oh, yeah, for today's preamble, is that what I'm calling this? I want to plug a friend's podcast, another Pretty Little Liars podcast. They're a little bit ahead, so keep that in mind. But you can obviously start their first episode and go from there. It's called Podcast, capital A in cast, keep in mind, a Pretty Little Liars podcast. Yeah, go check them out if you're looking for another PLL podcast to add to your life. Podcast, a Pretty Little Liars podcast. That was not sponsored content. That was just purely your ad here. I don't know. Anyway, we have to talk about French stuff now. That'll make sense. Chris watches Pretty Little Liars. Chris watches Pretty Little Liars. Chris watches Pretty Little Liars, so he can help you figure out who's A. This is Season 1, Episode 16, Je suis une amie. Did I do that correctly, French speakers? Je suis une amie. I guess I understand this, but I kind of don't. Anyway, we start with the Kavanaugh mailbox being destroyed. Apparently, this happens quite a bit. Cut to Aria in her house, talking about Dad's not going to be home for dinner, so her and Mike have to order in. Line that really made me laugh for some reason. Order in from Sausage Heaven. There's a place called Sausage Heaven in Rosewood.
Oh no, here I am looking at my services. I had a good life. This is my time. My friends and family are gathered around to see me off to the other side. Here I go. Here I am in heaven. I was a good kid, but boy, I'm really hungry.
We have pizza, salad.
What are you talking about? You don't have any sausage up here in heaven?
No.
I've got an idea. Here at Sausage Heaven, our food is divine. We got Polish, kielbasa, hot, mild, spicy, hot dog, all other types of sausage. You can put it in a bun, you can put it in a piece of bread, you can eat it just by itself. However you want it, we'll give it to you. Here at Sausage Heaven, on 3824 Street, here in Rosewood, Pennsylvania. The worst kept secret in all of Rosewood. Come down to Sausage Heaven now, say Sal sent you, and get 5% off your first order. Sausage Heaven. Food to die for.
Dad has a quote thing, and he's wearing his new shirt. Dad has a thing in his new shirt. And then Arya goes into his coat to pay for the dance-a-thon, like a check is in his coat, and she finds the unused Beja ticket. Uh-oh. She's confused. Was Mom at the museum? Dad stumbles and kind of really lies poorly. Again, not a behavior. Says Arya should talk to her mom, which is a common thing people do on this show. I won't answer your question. I will vaguely tell you to talk to somebody else about it. Cut to Emily and Spencer having a chat. They notice the Toby mailbox was destroyed. I believe they're in Emily's house, right? Because that's how they can see it. Spencer now feels the opposite about Toby, and Emily says, well, you should apologize to him, not to me, for all your anti-Toby talk. And then Toby's cleaning up outside and catches Spencer looking at him through the window, and they have this weird window gaze, which happens quite a bit. Remember Jason last time was like staring at people through a window? Everyone stares at people when they look through windows in the show. I don't know. Cut to the school. Hannah and Arya are having a chat, and there's some peripheral noise about someone sneaking out of the building at night instead of someone sneaking in. We'll find out soon enough who that might be. Arya shows Hannah the ticket. Now, again, I'm watching this for the first time myself. I knew this wasn't going to go away. I wonder if Hannah thought, well, no harm, no foul. This whole Beja thing is done. Nope. Arya says right to Hannah, hey, I found this ticket. Isn't this weird? Hannah lies again and again. I put in my notes. Hannah spots Caleb and is like, hey, Arya, get me a coffee. I need to talk to Caleb. She walks over to Caleb. Hannah kicks Caleb's shoe. Note the converse. And then she tells Caleb to say nothing about the whole thing with the car and her mom and everything. And Caleb, as I suspected, says, you owe me. And then they walk away. And then a first A message of the episode to Hannah. It says, Caleb's quiet, but how are you, the letter R, the letter U, going to shut me is in all caps, up? Caleb's quiet, but how are you going to shut me up, ~A? A very unusual message, and then, Hannah kind of looks around and sees everyone on their phones, but I don't know. Either A was watching or A is bluffing. I'm starting to suspect that A might actually talk a bigger game than they actually have. Because why didn't A already say something? I don't know. Basically, I'm saying A is not as powerful as they were before. Something about them feels a little weaker to me. I don't know. We also then catch Arya looking at the ticket. Cut to the pool. We have a pop rock song happening. We cut to the locker room. Paige and Emily apparently had a very similar time. So Coach says, we're going to have a swim off to see who gets to be the anchor in the big race coming up. And then Paige says something very confusing. Like, they're talking about the swim off. And Emily says, I don't know, like, may the best person win. And Paige says, you figure it out. I need to swim. I didn't quite understand that. Anyway, cut to the hallway. Mom Montgomery finds Ari in the hallway. Their conversations are so awkward these days. Ari goes right into it, asks her mom about the Bazia ticket. Mom tells 70% of the truth. She was going to go, and then she ran to a friend, and they had dinner. Quote, dinner, unquote. Cut to Hannah is stressed in the library, and she spots Caleb in the book stacks. He nods towards her. She goes over to him, and he says he needs to call in his debt. He needs a date, which is kind of vague on the actual definition of that, but he says he needs a date. He needs to find people with pockets, with money to burn. And Hannah's like, hey, well, we're going to the swim meet at the end of the week. You want to go to that? And I guess that's where they're going to have their date. I don't know. Cut to the hallway. Spencer encourages Emily to kick Paige's ass, basically, in this swim-off. Emily's not feeling this competitiveness, and Spencer's encouraging her to do that, which is very in line with Spencer's character. Then on the wall, where there's a flyer, en français, Emily tells Spencer that this person who's looking for a tutor is Toby, but no one wants to work with Toby because they all harass him in the hallway. Spencer takes it and takes down the poster and says, you know what, I'm going to help him, and I'm going to get some information out of him. And Emily's like, well, he's not going to talk to you. He doesn't trust anyone anymore. But Spencer's going to try it anyway. Why not? As Spencer walks away, she stops by Ian's office. Boy, oh boy, how awkward. And she basically says to Ian, you know, I'm not going to practice. Ian gets all pouty face and says, what are you missing practice for? And he says, you can't avoid me. Oh boy. As if on cue, Melissa walks in. I guess she's stopping by the office. Again, security, very lax in this school. Spencer says, look, I'm tutoring. I don't have time to come to practice. Sorry. Spencer takes it a step further and says, I'm tutoring Toby. Melissa and Ian, as you might expect, lose their minds. They're all like, that's a bad idea. Don't you dare, don't you dare, don't you dare. And then Spencer says the kicker line. Well, Toby hasn't cornered the market online. And she's looking right at Ian and she says this. Ian has nothing to say. Cut 2, Spencer showing up at Toby's. He's very suspicious when she knocks on the door. He's like, why you? And she's like, I'm good at French. And apparently the ankle bracelet is back on. I guess it was off for a little bit, but he put it back on. I don't quite know how the bracelet works or what the range is, but basically says they can't leave, but they can't do it inside. So Spencer's like, how about we talk on the porch? And he's like, all right. Cut to Arya and Hannah. They are at Arya's house. Hannah lies some more about this whole ticket thing. And then Arya hears Dad on the phone talking about making plans. Arya confronts him, and he lies about it again. So Arya's like to Hannah, let's tail him. They're going to have some sort of date or something. Let's find out what the fuck's going on. So they go tail their dad. Cut to Toby's porch with Spencer. They're reading Catcher in the Rye, which in translated means the heart catcher. Interesting. And then Spencer says, you're being framed. And Toby's like, yeah, I know, I didn't do anything. And she apologizes to him for kind of accusing him. And she tries to get more information about the sweater. Like, she's trying to lay out the timeline here. So I wrote down, based on this, they have a little conversation here, right? And then the window shuts inside, and Toby's like, I got to get the hell out of here. And he leaves, okay? I've wrote down a little timeline so far of what we know of the evening that Allison disappeared, right? So we have the party. We have the party in the barn, which we saw in the very first episode. Talking, laughing, Allison giving little shots to each of her friends throughout the evening. Not great. They all were drinking, so they all were a little buzzed. So there's a party. We know there's a fight inside between Spencer and Allison. They have this argument where Allison's basically like, you better tell Melissa what's going on. We don't know exactly what, but she's like, you better tell her because she's going to know in the morning. Spencer fires back. Allison leaves. We know Spencer follows. We know there's a photo taken from Allison's bedroom at some point directly after that. We know Spencer leaves. Toby arrives between somewhere in there. At some point, he gives Allison his sweater. And then what we know now is that Allison gets into a car with, as Toby describes, an unknown gentleman. I'm going to assume that's Ian. And then I think they go to the Kissing Rock, which I think is the location, or that place in the woods, right? Is that place in the woods Kissing Rock? Anyway, they go to a separate location somewhere. Allison is wearing Toby's sweater, and then that is when the video occurs. So that's when the video occurs, and then from there, we don't know what happens. Okay? And then I wrote a note, is Spencer crushing on Toby? That's quite a twist. Forget figuring out who A is. That was a twist I never saw coming. So is Allison and Toby into each other? I don't know. And then, again, never thought Spencer and Toby might be a thing, but we'll get to that more later. We jump to the evening. Byron gets out of his car. He goes into the school. Hannah and Arya are trailing them. I believe Hannah is driving, and they say, hey, Hannah says, hey, call your mom on her phone. Arya does. Mom picks up, and Dad is with Mom. And there's just lies told all over the place. Mom's like, where are you? I'm home. And Arya's like, I'm home too. And then Arya and Hannah decide to go into the school to get a better look, I guess. Mom and Dad are smooching, and at first I was like, this is so weird. But then I kind of get it. I kind of get Ella's hesitation here. She says, we can't tell the kids what's going on until you and I know what's going on. That makes sense. It's still weird because, as Arya puts it, my parents are having an affair with each other. A very funny way to sum up the confusing situation here. And then we see Hannah and Arya are inside the school, and they're in the library, I believe, and they see something in a vent, and it's kind of like this big person-sized hole in the wall with a vent, and they find clothes. There's a bag, there's cash, a whole bunch of phones. It looks like A stuff. It looks like what we've seen A use. And that's the conclusion they draw, is like A is living in the building. Lights go out, books are pushed down, which we've seen before for some reason. And then, very menacingly, a person in a hoodie glares at them. It does look like Caleb. I was like hitting pause and like scrolling through. I'm like, is this Caleb? There's a chase scene. They run to a door that's chained and locked, which is a real thing. I know there's some things in this show that I take a lot of license with. They do, at least when the grade school I grew up in, that is real. The chains and the padlock is a real thing. And then Hannah, I believe, is the one that pepper sprays. Well, it turns out not to be pepper spray, but they spray the person. And then we cut to a commercial break in broadcast time, but we just cut to, it is in fact Caleb. And apparently Hannah sprayed him with hairspray, apparently a cheap brand. And again, a notice to all dudes on this show, stop scaring people. Why in the hell did Caleb not say, hey, it's me, Caleb, instead of running after them like Jason from Halloween or something? Just say who you are. Please stop this. Anyway, Caleb is living here. Apparently his foster parents are not really very kind, and he's like, just let me be, I live here. The liars are like, well, they know something's going on, but I guess he's going to stay there. At the same time, we cut to Emily's house, and someone shows up at her door, and it's Paige in the rain, and she says, I'm sorry, and like leaves on her bike, and Emily's like, what the hell? Cut to the next day for the swim-off. Apparently we're on Friday here, and Coach says Paige injured herself last night on her bike. There'll be no swim-off, and Emily, you are the anchor. And Emily's like, what is going on? Cut to the hallway. We have Caleb in his hat again. I approve. And it's time for the dossier portion of this deal. Caleb's like, all right, Hannah, you introduce me to people who have a lot of cash. Hannah points out Bridget Wu, who is into... So basically, Hannah's like giving Caleb the lowdown. Bridget Wu, her weakness is drinking. So she'll take a sip of booze every now and then. She also points out someone named Lindsay Hoover. She's very hipstery, but she's also come from very rich parents. So just be kind of a hipster and she'll be into you. And then Hannah says, quid pro quo Clarice. That's really hard to say fast. She wants to know about his real parents. And he's like, that's for another time. We cut to, I guess this is right outside the swim meet. Ian is flirting with somebody. Melissa and Spencer are there, and Spencer's like, is that okay with you? And Melissa is like, and they have the first of quite a few fights this episode. And Spencer's like, he's not being honest with you. And Spencer's like, ask him about Allison. Ian approaches with hot dogs. And he's like, well, let's go inside, Melissa. And Spencer, again, very bold, just says, oh yeah, we were talking about Allison. Ian's face turns sour. He's like, let's go inside. Cut to inside the swim meet. Caleb is sitting with the crew. And says, which one is Bridget again? Hannah's like, over there. Caleb gets up and leaves. We don't know what happens. Emily is ready to do her anchor part of the swim, and Paige shows up in her civvies, her civilian clothes, and is cheering on the team. We get a cool swim montage. And I think throughout this episode, is Emily really swimming? That's pretty cool that she's really doing it. Of course, Emily wins the swim meet. Paige is included in the applauding. And Emily and Paige share a look. Now, I've had this suspicion for a while. Is the show, I don't know, is the show hinting at those two are going to end up together? Maybe. At least friends. At least burying the hatchet. But we'll find out. That's right. So after the swim meet, Arya and Spencer are leaving. Arya gets a text. Almost got you busted. Want to know how? Ask Hannah _A. This is the same A that is harassing Hannah to do all this stuff. The _A is associated with these two. Caleb's going through the trash. Apparently, they threw all his stuff out. And he said, don't worry, Hannah, our debt is paid. And Hannah offers for him to crash at her house. Don't worry, it'll be incognito. At first, he's like, nah. But then he actually says, and Hannah's like, don't worry, you can sleep downstairs. My mom will never know. Arya approaches Hannah and shows her the A text. Hannah tells Arya that she did it. Wow. She said, A made me do it. Arya's still not happy. And as I predicted, the friendship is permanently altered. We'll see how that falls out from here, but Arya is very upset. Cut to Emily and Paige having a chat. Paige is like, she really did wipe out. There was a little Band-Aid over her face, so I don't think it's a lie. And then Paige says she's done with swimming. And then she asks Emily, well, you were done with swimming, but then you came back. Like, what made you change? Like, how did you back into it? And Emily says, I started doing it for myself. I stopped doing it for some sort of team or some sort of like accomplishment. And I swim for myself. And she's like, when's the last time you swam for fun? And then they both have a swim in the pool, like a little double lap thing. So at least there's a friendship blooming here. Cut back to Toby's house. I guess Spencer is returning for lesson number 2. There's a sunglasses and book outside, which looks like the telltale signs of Jenna having hung out on the porch. Toby says, you have to go. Sorry, we're done. We can't do this anymore. Spencer is sad. And I asked myself, where's Alex? Is he off for good? Are they done? I guess so. Cut to Arya journaling, and Hannah tries to call her. She X's her. Not taking the calls. Cut over to Hannah, who looks sad that Arya's not taking her calls. Caleb, super cash, comes down the stairs, says, hey, can I use some towels? I thought he was staying in the basement, but he's upstairs. Anyway, Hannah's looking really sad, and Caleb says, do you want me to stay? And she's like, no, you don't have to, and she's very upset, and then Caleb just kind of sits down next to her, just to sit with her. Cut to Spencer's house. Melissa wants to have another chat. Another mini fight happens, and then Melissa says, I know about you and Ian. I'm like, let's put it behind us, because I am pregnant. And Spencer's face, including mine, drops. And Melissa's like, this is the part where you say, congratulations. And she's like, whatever, and Melissa leaves. And then, so Melissa leaves, and the French book that Spencer had given Toby is back in Spencer's possession, and there's a little sheet of paper in there. From Toby, it looks like. It says, I found this in Jenna's room, and then there's what looks like some braille. And it says, you may be right, Toby. So being the detective that I am, I tried to decipher the braille. I may not have done a very good job, but there's 2 possible interpretations. The first letter there says number follows. So it could be that these following 3 are digits. So 214 is if I did that correctly. So 214 is some sort of significant number. However, if you were to take those last 3 letters and translate them into letters, it translates to bad. So there you go. Finally, for our blackout moment, there's someone listening to a record or an audio cassette tape about learning French. The voice did sound like Caleb's, even though I don't think it's supposed to be him, but it sounded like the actor was brought in to do the VO. At any rate, they kept saying, Je suis, I am. Je suis, I am. Yeah, no idea what that has to do with anything, but yeah, these last few blackout scenes have really been more confusing than spooky. I don't know what that has to do with anything. But so where are we, folks? I still am convinced that the _A texting Hannah and Arya is Noel Kahn. We haven't heard too much from A lately for the other 2 liars, for whatever reason. The whole Toby and Jenna thing, I think is just Jenna being jealous, to be perfectly honest with you all. I don't think it's A related. I mean, Jenna wants to clear Toby's name, so it doesn't make sense to me that Jenna wouldn't want to help Spencer. But I think Toby's message to Spencer is that Jenna knows more than she's telling us, which we've all assumed for a long time. I think at this point, I've gone so far into the Jenna-Allison team-up, I have to stick with that. If Allison is hiding out in that house, which, to be honest, would be super weird, and I would have no explanation as to why that's happening, that could explain why, Toby can't have Spencer over, they can't revealing this information yet, and that this message that Toby left Spencer isn't really from Toby, or it's a planted message to have Spencer do the investigation, the legwork. The entire premise of the podcast is to figure out who A is, right? Because they're harassing our liars, etc. We've also been trying to piece together what happened that evening, that Allison disappeared. Clearly, Ian knows more than he's told us, both in the world of the show as well as us, the audience. Toby knows more than he's been telling us. We don't know when exactly he showed up, why he showed up, but there's a connection there. Jenna knows more than she's told us. I mean, the answer here could be very simple. It could be Ian was like, look, I can't have this come out. This person needs to go away, and he did something. Or he paid Allison to disappear, which would be weird. Or a little less off-brand for the show, but maybe Ian was involved in some shady dealings. Allison found out about it, maybe in their weekend in the golf course thing. And so, her family being powerful as they are, they went to the authorities with it, and he threatened them. He's done it before. He's not a nice dude. So it could be that. Yeah, I think the reason Allison is missing has to do with Ian, whether he's done something that she knows about or something else. And then this A network was set up to try and get that information to come out in an organic way by somebody, or it was done to set up to harass the liars, which Noel, Mona, Meredith, etc., the whole gang, as I've said before, are all taking part in. I still think Caleb is going to be the one to help them figure out this network. And I think him staying with Hannah is going to blow that wide open. I predict by the end of the season, we'll have figured out this A network. So, again, my name's Chris McGowan. I'm at Magoogs on Instagram and Twitter. And Mac to the Gal, occasionally twitching, usually on Monday nights, sometimes Sunday nights, maybe some random nights. I'm tired these days, but when I do, I'm there. And I've said a lot and enough. Okay, bye.